10%. This wasn't just about the band not getting along, argued Mustaine's attorney. This was a calculated business decision to cut my client out of what would become one of the most valuable catalogs in metal history. The courtroom showdown. Day 1 of the trial set the tone. As Mustaine entered the courtroom, Lars Ulrich visibly tensed. James Hetfield stared straight ahead, refusing eye contact with his former bandmate. The 40-year rivalry had finally reached its legal battleground. Your Honor, this case is about intellectual theft on a massive scale, Mustaine's attorney opened. For songs that generated over $70 million in revenue written by my client, credited to others. The trial quickly became intense. When the newly discovered demo tapes were played in court, Mustaine was seen nodding emphatically, occasionally pointing at specific sections when his distinctive playing style could be heard. During cross-examination, tensions escalated. Mr. Ulrich, is it your testimony that Mr. Mustaine had no part in writing the main riff of the Four Horsemen? Asked Mustaine's attorney. We all contributed ideas, Lars responded, shifting uncomfortably. Yet in this 1983 interview, you specifically said Dave came up with that killer opening riff. The courtroom grew particularly tense during Hetfield's testimony. Mr. Hetfield, would you say the Four Horsemen was a significantly altered version of Mr. Mustaine's original composition, Mechanics? Questioned Mustaine's lawyer. We transformed it into something different, Hetfield replied tersely. Mustaine, visibly agitated, muttered something under his breath. The judge warned, Mr. Mustaine, please refrain from commentary unless you're on the stand. Music experts testified that Mustaine's unique playing style was unmistakable in the disputed tracks. These compositions bear his musical fingerprints, testified Dr. Harold Jenkins, musicologist from Berkeley. The angular riffing, the chromatic elements, it's distinctly Mustaine's approach. Metallica's defense focused on transformation, arguing that while Mustaine may have contributed initial ideas, the final songs were substantially different after his departure. These became Metallica songs through our blood and sweat, Hetfield testified. Dave left before they were even properly recorded. As the trial neared its end, the metal community watched with intense interest. This wasn't just a legal battle. It was the final confrontation between two titans whose rivalry had defined an entire genre. The money trail. Financial forensics became a central element of the trial, with accountants following the money trail of the disputed songs across 40 years of Metallica's career. The numbers were staggering. Beyond album sales, which had generated approximately $45 million for the disputed tracks, there were concert performances estimated at $62 million in value, merchandise, $38 million, and the modern streaming era, which added another $15 million and growing. Metallica's business empire had expertly monetized their catalog through strategic licensing deals, limited edition releases, and premium experiences. The songs Mustaine claimed to have written had become cash-generating assets in a portfolio worth nearly $1 billion. The irony, noted one industry expert testifying at the trial, is that Mustaine's early Metallica compositions now generate more annual revenue than Metallica's entire catalog. The Four Horsemen's streaming income alone exceeds Metallica's top 3 songs combined. The financial disparity extended to touring as well. While Metallica commanded $2 million per stadium show with production costs offset by massive audience sizes, Metallica's theater circuit brought in roughly $250,000 per night. Respectable in metal circles, but a fraction of their rivals' take. Perhaps most painful for Mustaine were the publishing royalties. Documentation showed that for each dollar generated by the disputed songs, Metallica members received approximately 40 cents, while Mustaine got just 2 cents through a limited contribution credit that had been reluctantly granted in the early 1990s. The verdict and collapse. On the final day, the courthouse was surrounded by metal fans, some holding justice for Dave signs, while others wore vintage Metallica shirts. Inside, the air felt electric as Judge Raymond Hartman prepared to deliver his verdict. In the matter of Mustaine vs. Metallica Incorporated, the judge began. This court has carefully weighed the evidence regarding disputed songwriting credits and resultant royalties. The room was so quiet you could hear the leather creak as Mustaine leaned forward, knuckles white as he gripped the table. The court finds compelling evidence that Mr. Mustaine made significant creative contributions to the compositions in question, the judge continued, particularly in the foundational riffs and structures that define these works. Mustaine's eyes widened. Lars and James exchanged nervous glances. However, the court also recognizes that substantial transformative work occurred after Mr. Mustaine's departure from the band. The judge's ruling was precise. Metallica would be required to update credits on all 4 disputed songs to include Mustaine as a co-writer, but the financial award was the real bombshell. Mustaine would receive retroactive royalties not for the full 40 years, but only for the past 7, the period since he had first formally issued a credit revision request through legal channels. The court awards damages in the amount of $28.4 million to be paid within 30 days. The judge announced the figure hit Mustaine like a physical blow. After 4 decades of fighting, after surviving addiction, cancer, and countless band lineup changes, this moment should have been triumph. Instead, the amount, just a fraction of the $250+ million his team had calculated, felt like one final insult. His face drained of color, sweat beat on his forehead as the judge continued reading the full judgment. Additionally, all future releases containing these compositions must. The judge's voice became distant, drowned out by a roaring in Mustaine's ears. The courtroom began to spin. His attorney noticed something was wrong, placing a steadying hand on his arm. But it wasn't enough. The man, who had stood defiant against the music industry for 40 years, suddenly slumped forward. Security rushed toward him as a collective gasp echoed through the courtroom. The metal icon who prided himself on never showing weakness was now unconscious before his rivals and the world. "He's had a vasovagal response," a doctor in the gallery called out, pushing through the crowd. "Give him space." Someone called 911. As paramedics rushed in, photographers captured the scene that would dominate music headlines worldwide. Dave Mustaine, the indomitable force behind me, being carried out on a stretcher. The emotional weight of 40 years of fighting finally taking its physical toll. Outside the courtroom, James Hetfield was seen briefly with his head in his hands while Lars stood stone-faced, refusing to comment as they were whisked away by security. The aftermath. The medical drama quickly overshadowed the legal verdict. Metal news sites and social media exploded with concern as fans shared updates and messages of support with hashtags like #Mustaine Legacy and #Metal Justice. 3 days later, still looking pale but with his defiance intact, Mustaine released a video from his hospital room. 40 years of anger will apparently give you high blood pressure, he explained with a weak smile. The doctor says I need to let some things go. Maybe he's right. The health scare seemed to shift something fundamental in the decades-long feud. In a surprising development, James Hetfield was reportedly seen entering the hospital. According to one anonymous source, the Metallica frontman spent almost an hour in Mustaine's room, though hospital staff would not confirm the visit. Neither would comment on what transpired, but Mustaine's next statement struck a different tone. "That bus ticket in 1983 set me on my own path. Maybe it was always meant to be this way. The court gave me validation, even if the check wasn't as big as I wanted," he said with a hint of his old fire. "I built something they couldn't destroy, and now my name is where it belongs on those songs." The industry buzzed with speculation about what might come next. "This legal battle has changed the landscape," commented one veteran producer. "These two have been at odds for so long that any kind of reconciliation would be monumental for metal." Music journalists noted that Mustaine appeared to be planning new concert dates that would feature the disputed songs in their original forms. Fan forums immediately lit up with theories about possible collaborations, though neither camp offered any confirmation. When asked directly about potential reconciliation, Mustaine gave his trademark smirk. "Let's just say we finally found something we agree on. Those songs deserve to be remembered properly." The legal battle had become something unexpected, a potential turning point rather than a final separation. Ticket sales for Metallica's upcoming shows surged with many venues reporting sellouts within hours of the news breaking. For fans who had followed this rivalry since the 1980s, the courtroom drama might represent the closing of metal's long-strung feud. The collapse that shocked fans worldwide hadn't just been a man reaching his breaking point. It may have been the old grudge itself finally giving way. What are your thoughts on Mustaine's legal battle with Metallica? Share your thoughts in the comments. Gasps filled the courtroom as the judge delivered the final verdict. Dave Mustaine, overwhelmed by the weight of his sentence, collapsed in shock. The dramatic scene left onlookers stunned, highlighting the intense emotions surrounding the case. But what led to this shocking courtroom confrontation between former bandmates now bitter enemies? Here's everything you need to know about the explosive lawsuit that brought the meth frontman to his knees. Dave Mustaine, a metal legend. Dave Mustaine was widely regarded as one of the greatest guitarists in thrash metal. Celebrated for his technical prowess, commanding presence, and unparalleled ability to bring authenticity to every riff he played. His career spanning over 4 decades included iconic performances with Megadeth in classics such as Symphony of Destruction, Holy Wars, and Rust in Peace. However, Mustaine's legacy extends far beyond his musical achievements. His influence on the craft of metal, his contributions to the genre, and his deliberate decision to rebuild after being ejected from Metallica all paint a picture of a man deeply dedicated to his art and personal vendetta. Mustaine's career was built on a foundation of discipline, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to his craft. Despite facing early rejections, including being fired from Metallica in 1983, he refused to let setbacks define him. Instead, he channeled his determination into forming Megadeth, eventually earning his place as one of the most respected guitarists of his generation. His performances earned him critical acclaim, solidifying his status as a metal legend. What set Mustaine apart was his ability to portray complex technical compositions with a depth and realism that resonated deeply with metal audiences. While Mustaine's guitar work made him famous, his business ventures showed his strategic mind. After building Megadeth into a metal powerhouse, he diversified with premium wines and upscale merchandise that made him millions. Money that would later fund his legal war against his former band. The betrayal that started it all. April 1983. While Mustaine slept off a hangover, Metallica's manager was finalizing a record deal that would change metal history. With one condition, Mustaine had to go. That morning, he was handed a one-way bus ticket home while his replacement, Kirk Hammett, was already flying in. His ticket purchased weeks earlier. This wasn't just a firing. It was a calculated business amputation that severed Mustaine from what would become a metal empire. That day they robbed me of more than just a band. Mustaine would later testify. They took my songs, my identity, and for 40 years pretended I was just a footnote. The bitter seed planted that day would grow into an obsession. While Metallica became global superstars, Mustaine built Megadeth with a singular focus, proving them wrong. Every album, every tour, every success was driven by this primal need for vindication. But beneath the surface, something else festered. The knowledge that songs he had written were earning millions in royalties he never saw. The rise of two metal titans. The aftermath of Mustaine's expulsion saw both bands take dramatically different paths to success. Metallica's trajectory skyrocketed after signing with Elektra Records. Their albums Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets defining a new era of thrash metal. Their aggressive sound, coupled with strong business decisions, positioned them as metal's most bankable act. Meanwhile, Mustaine faced immediate roadblocks. Record labels wary of taking on Metallica's cast-off initially offered Megadeth minimal support. Their debut album, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, was recorded on a shoestring budget of just $8,000, a fraction of what Metallica was spending. The stark financial disparity created resentment that would fester for decades. "We were eating ramen while they were dining on steak," Mustaine told Metal Hammer in 1987. "But hunger makes you hungrier. I was determined to outplay, outwrite, and outperform everyone, especially Lars and James." This determination fueled a prolific and technically advanced approach to metal. While Metallica broadened their appeal with more accessible songs, Megadeth doubled down on complexity and speed. Albums like Peace Sells. But Who's Buying? Showcased Mustaine's intricate compositions and politically charged lyrics, establishing Megadeth as intellectual counterpoint to Metallica's raw power. The late 1980s and early 1990s saw the rivalry intensify as both bands reached creative peaks. Metallica's self-titled Black Album pushed them into mainstream superstardom with over 16 million copies sold in the US alone. While Megadeth's Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction earned critical acclaim for their technical brilliance. Behind the scenes, however, Mustaine struggled with substance abuse issues that threatened to derail his career. Problems he often blamed on the trauma of his Metallica firing. "Getting kicked out sent me spiraling," he admitted in his autobiography. "I turned to what numbed the pain, and it nearly killed me multiple times." This personal chaos contrasted sharply with Metallica's increasingly professional operation. By the mid-1990s, the financial gap between the bands had become enormous. While both toured worldwide, industry documents revealed Metallica grossing up to $1.5 million per show, with Megadeth earning roughly a third of that. This disparity only deepened Mustaine's sense of injustice. Decades of bitter words. The Mustaine-Metallica feud played out publicly through interviews with barbs traded regularly in metal magazines and later online. In a 1991 interview with Hangar 18 magazine, Mustaine claimed "They've been trying to catch up to my playing since I left. Kirk still can't play my solos correctly." Metallica generally avoided direct responses, though Lars Ulrich occasionally fired back. "Dave seems more interested in Metallica than his own band sometimes," he told Rolling Stone in 1994. "Maybe he should focus on Megadeth and stop obsessing over what happened a decade ago." The tension reached new heights when Metallica released the documentary Some Kind of Monster in 2004, featuring an uncomfortable confrontation between Mustaine and Ulrich. In the film, Mustaine expressed lingering hurt. "You guys kicked me out and never gave me a second chance. That damaged me." The documentary revealed the psychological wounds still festering decades after the split. Metal journalists noted how Mustaine appeared genuinely traumatized by the ejection from Metallica, comparing it to getting divorced and watching your ex become a billionaire with your ideas. This psychological dimension of the feud explained Mustaine's oscillation between attempts at reconciliation and renewed hostility. He participated in Big Four concerts alongside Metallica in 2010 to 2011, briefly suggesting the hatchet had been buried. Yet by 2016, he was again claiming in interviews that Metallica had stolen his early compositions. Industry psychologists pointed to classic patterns of unresolved trauma in Mustaine's behavior. When someone feels their contributions have been erased or minimized, it creates a wound that doesn't heal, explained Dr. Marcia Reynolds, author of Behind the Music Psychology of Artist Conflicts. For artists especially, their creations are extensions of themselves. Having authorship disputed feels like identity theft. The breaking point. What finally triggered Mustaine's lawsuit after 40 years of simmering rage? A discovery during a 2022 interview with Tony Richards, a former sound engineer who worked on Metallica's early recordings. "I found these old demo reels in storage," Richards explained in a metal podcast that quickly made rounds among fans. "You can clearly hear Dave directing the band on those tracks, showing Lars the drum parts, coaching James on certain sections." The recordings became a major topic in metal communities, with music websites analyzing the similarities between these demos and the final Metallica versions. A week later, Mustaine's daughter showed him a music business analysis that estimated lifetime royalties for the Four Horsemen at approximately $22 million, with nothing going to her father despite his contribution to the iconic riff. "My dad wrote that main section when he was barely out of his teens," she told a reporter. "That song helped launch Metallica and he never saw proper recognition for it." This personal connection, seeing his daughter defend his legacy, seemed to be the final catalyst. Within weeks, Mustaine assembled a legal team and filed a lawsuit seeking $250 million in damages, back royalties, and proper songwriting credits on 4 tracks that had become metal classics. The Four Horsemen, Jump in the Fire, Metal Militia, and Phantom Lord. The lawsuit wasn't just about money. These songs represented Mustaine's creative legacy, fundamental pieces of his musical contribution to the genre. The legal action sent shock waves through the industry, with experts calling it potentially the most significant copyright case in metal history. The business behind the betrayal. Court filings revealed startling details about the business machinations that led to Mustaine's expulsion. Internal memos from 1983 showed that multiple record labels had actually made offers to sign Metallica with Mustaine still in the lineup. However, management concerns about his volatility led to a calculated decision. Current guitarist presents unacceptable business risk. Read one confidential document. Recommend immediate personnel change before proceeding with contract negotiations. The court case exposed the cold financial logic behind the firing. Mustaine wasn't just unreliable, he was a liability on the balance sheet. The revelation that his departure had been planned well in advance, with Kirk Hammett's plane ticket purchase before Mustaine even knew he was being terminated, added a layer of premeditation that shocked even industry veterans. Financial experts testifying at the trial outlined the staggering monetary impact of this decision. While Metallica became a billion-dollar enterprise, the songs Mustaine co-created continued generating substantial income. The Four Horsemen alone had earned over $22 million in royalties across various platforms, with similar figures for the other disputed tracks. More damning still was evidence suggesting Metallica's management had deliberately structured songwriter credits to minimize Mustaine's claim. A 1984 publishing contract showed his contributions listed as arranging assistance rather than co-writing, significantly reducing his royalty percentage from the standard 50% to less than